The Chicago skyline was a forest of glass and steel, shimmering under the pale light of a winter moon. High above the freezing streets, on the 82nd floor of the prestigious Aegis Cybernetics headquarters, the air was silent and cool, smelling faintly of ozone and expensive cologne. Aegis was the world leader in Neuralink technology, a multi-billion-dollar empire built by its charismatic but ruthless CEO, Julian Vane. To the public, Vane was a visionary. To the people who worked for him, he was a king who demanded absolute loyalty. Into this high-tech fortress walked a woman who called herself Kate. She wore a faded gray hoodie, glasses that sat slightly crooked on her nose, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. She had been hired as a night shift server maintenance technician, a job that mostly involved cleaning dust out of massive computer racks and checking cables in the dark, lonely hours of the morning. To the elite security team at Aegis, men who were mostly former private contractors with massive egos, Kate was a joke. She was the computer girl who barely spoke, flinching whenever someone raised their voice. The head of security, an arrogant man named Stone, took a special interest in making her life miserable. Stone was a former ranger who thought that if you weren't carrying a rifle, you weren't a real person. He would intentionally trip her in the break room, mock her nerdy interests, and once even poured a cup of cold coffee onto her keyboard just to see her reaction. Kate would just apologize, wipe up the mess, and go back to her service. Stone laughed, telling his men that Kate was the definition of a pawn, someone who would live and die without ever making a ripple in the world. He had no idea that he was bullying a woman who had once ghosted the entire Iranian national security grid in under 10 minutes. The reality was that Kate was actually Major Catherine Spector Reed, a legendary operative from the Army's Intelligence Support Activity, a unit so secret that even most high-ranking generals didn't know it existed. Catherine was a Tier 1 cyber warfare specialist, a woman who operated in the intersection of digital shadows and physical violence. She had been sent to Aegis because the Department of Defense suspected Julian Vane was selling backdoor access to U.S. satellite networks to hostile foreign governments. But as Catherine spent her nights cleaning the server farm, she discovered something much worse. Vane wasn't just selling data. He was using homeless veterans from the Chicago streets as human test subjects for his Neuralink prototypes, turning them into digital husks to test the limits of his hardware. The situation reached a breaking point on a Thursday night during a massive blizzard that paralyzed the city. The skyscraper was on skeleton crew mode, with only Julian Vane, Stone's security team, and Kate on the upper floors. While Catherine was in the sub-basement server room, she saw a young courier, a local kid named Sam, being dragged into the freight elevator by two of Stone's men. Sam had accidentally delivered a package to the wrong floor and seen something he shouldn't have. Catherine watched the security feed as Stone slapped the boy across the face, telling him that accidents happen in buildings this tall. Her hand stayed steady on her laptop, but her eyes turned into shards of ice. The tech girl was gone. The Spectre had arrived. Catherine didn't call the police. She knew that Vane had the local precinct on his payroll. Instead, she opened a secure line to a stealth drone circling 5 miles above the city. "Spectre here," she whispered, her voice a low, lethal hum. "Target confirmed. Human rights violations in progress. Initiating blackout protocol. Signal the extraction team for a 30-minute window." She didn't wait for a reply. She began to type, her fingers moving across the keys with a speed that would have made the Aegis engineers weep with envy. In 30 seconds, she had bypassed the unbreakable firewalls of the building's central nervous system. She didn't just have access, she owned the building. Stone was in the 82nd floor security hub, laughing as he watched Sam tremble in a chair. Suddenly, every screen in the room flickered and died. The red emergency lights began to pulse, and the heavy blast shutters over the windows slammed shut. The elevator's power was cut, and the electronic locks on every door in the facility engaged. Stone's radio crackled to life, but it wasn't his men on the other end. It was a woman's voice, calm, cold, and utterly terrifying. "You like to play games with people who can't fight back, Stone," the voice said. "Now, you're in my world, and in my world, there is nowhere to hide." Stone, thinking it was just a glitch or a brave IT worker, ordered his 12 men to find Kate and delete her. He thought it would be easy. He thought 12 armed professionals could catch one girl with a laptop. He was wrong. Catherine used the smart building as her weapon. She manipulated the lighting to blind the guards, used the high-pressure fire suppression system to knock them off balance, and even used the building's industrial floor polishers to create traps. To the guards, it felt like the building itself was alive and angry. A guard would turn a corner and be met with a blast of sub-zero CO2. Another would step into a darkened room and find himself trapped as the magnetic locks engaged, sealing him in a pitch-black closet. Catherine moved through the hallways like a shadow come to life. She wasn't carrying a gun. She didn't need one. She used a pair of specialized, high-voltage taser gloves and a collapsible bat. When she met the first three-man fight, the guards didn't even have time to break. She moved with a fluid, terrifying grace, disarming the lead guard and using his own momentum to send him through a glass partition. In 10 seconds, 3 elite mercenaries were unconscious on the floor. She picked up a radio and spoke directly to Stone. 3 down, Stone. I'm coming for the rest. By the time Catherine reached the 82nd floor, Stone was the only one left. He was frantic, holding Sam as a human shield, his pistol pressed against the boy's temple. Julian Vane was cowering in the corner of his office, his billions of dollars useless against the woman who was systematically dismantling his life. When the doors to the office hissed open, Catherine didn't look like a tech girl anymore. She had discarded her glasses, her hair was pulled back, and her eyes held a void that made Stone's blood run cold. "Let the boy go, Stone," Catherine said. Her voice wasn't a scream. It was a statement of fact. Stone laughed, but it was a desperate, shaky sound. He told her that he was a ranger, a warrior, and that she was nothing but a keyboard geek. He told her that he would kill the boy and then her. Catherine didn't move. She just looked at him and said, "A ranger is supposed to protect the weak, not prey on them. You're not a warrior. You're just a bully who found a uniform." At that exact moment, she triggered a localized electromagnetic pulse from her laptop. Stone's electronic pistol sight flickered out, and for a split second, he was distracted. It was all Catherine needed. She moved faster than Stone thought possible. She closed the distance in 3 strides, her baton striking his wrist with the precision of a master. The gun hit the floor, and Sam scrambled away to safety. The fight that followed was brief and brutal. Stone tried to use his size and strength, but Catherine used his own weight against him, parrying his strikes and landing counterblows that shattered his ribs and his ego. She ended the fight with a devastating throw that sent Stone crashing onto Julian Vane's expensive glass desk. The head of security was broken, and the king of cybernetics was next. Catherine walked over to Vane, who was trying to delete files from his private server. She didn't even have to touch him. She just held up her laptop. "It's already gone, Julian. Every contract, every video of your experiments, every bribe you ever paid. It's all currently being downloaded by the FBI, the CIA, and the New York Times. You didn't just lose your building tonight. You lost your name." Vane collapsed into his chair, realizing that his entire empire had been brought down by the woman who used to empty his trash. As the sun began to rise over the frozen lake, the glass tower was swarmed by federal agents. The blacked-out helicopters landed on the roof, and the Spectre stood on the balcony, watching as the veterans she had rescued were being treated by medics. She didn't stay for the medals or the interviews. She handed her laptop to a waiting intelligence officer, slung her faded backpack over her shoulder, and walked toward the freight elevator. Stone and Vane were led away in handcuffs, their faces pale as they were paraded past the cameras. The story of the Aegis scandal would dominate the news for months, and the public would wonder how such a massive conspiracy was uncovered so quickly. But the tech girl from the 82nd floor was already gone. Catherine was sitting in a quiet diner on the outskirts of the city, eating a plate of pancakes and drinking a cup of hot coffee. She had a new ID, a new mission, and a new location waiting for her. She looked at her hands, the same hands that had mopped floors and dismantled a private army, and smiled faintly. To the world, she was just a nobody, and that was her greatest power. Because as long as the powerful and the corrupt looked down on the nobodies of the world, Catherine Reed would be there, waiting in the shadows, ready to show them that the person holding the mop is sometimes the most dangerous person in the building. As she finished her breakfast and walked out into the crisp Chicago morning, the ghost disappeared into the crowd, her next target already in her sights. If you enjoyed this story of justice and hidden power, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the best underestimated hero stories every week, where the bullies finally get what they deserve. Don't forget to like this video and comment below. What should our hero's next undercover job be? A hospital? A luxury hotel? Let us know, and thanks for watching.